Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining me, Mara Grujanic, Stevenson High School Family Engagement Coordinator. So happy that you're joining me today to talk about cultivating our teen sense of belonging. It is such an important thing that we can do for our teens to help them think about not necessarily where do I fit in, but where do I belong? Which is sometimes we will modify what we do, who we are, how we think to mold or fit into the environment that we're in. But when you feel like you belong, you are able to be your most authentic self. And Brene Brown is one of those people who talks a lot about true belonging, that it's like a spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so much that you can be who you really, really, truly are without fear. And so that's like who you really are, what you really think, how you really feel is pretty tough for our teens. Because remember, we talk a lot about what's going on with our teens right now. And what's going on with them is they're becoming, in their brain, they're becoming adults. So they're pulling away from being a child and going toward being an adult and trying on different things, trying on what do they see around them? Who are the peers that are around them? What do they like? What are they? So it's hard to think about balancing that. What do I see out there? Because our teens really have incredible influence from their peers. And as they're going through that self-discovery of being a teenager, they can feel like, I don't belong. There's no place I belong. And that's a tough thing because even as adults, sometimes we can feel like, do I belong? Do I really matter here? And so oftentimes in that, what you really want is sort of forsaken, or you step away from what you really want in order to belong. And because to belong, to feel that belonging is to really be very, very vulnerable. And it takes a really courageous step to say, no, I don't care what anybody else thinks. This is who I authentically am. And so Brene Brown, who is that person who talks a lot about being who you authentically are, she's an author. She says, belonging is that desire to be part of something, to experience a real connection, but not like, so I am really part of this, but not at the risk of giving up who you authentically are. So what that means for our teens is that we want to belong. We want to feel a place where we are authentically loved for who we really are. And if we know that our teens are going out in the world and biologically part of the process of growing up and becoming adults is to look outside and try on all these different sort of personas, or what kind of human am I? Do I feel confident being super extroverted or not, or whatever it is? If they have that outside, then where do they have a safe place to be authentically who they are? And that's at home. That's through you. That's through the really, really close adults in their lives. And so that's where they don't have to compromise, right? They just fit in because that's who they are. And we accept them for who they are because we love them unconditionally, and we give them a safe space to sort of talk without judgment, with open-ended conversations, to say, hey, you can be who you truly feel you are, and you don't have to be scared of who you are. You don't have to be scared being out there on your own. Brene Brown talks about it like it's being like in the wilderness. So how do we help these young teens who are trying to figure out who they are? They're trying to figure out their authentic self, right? They don't even know what that is. One day it could be one person and one day it could be the other person. How do we help them think about who they want to be and be confident in the world? Well, the first thing we can do is encourage their exploration. Share your passions with them and allow them to see what you're passionate about. And if it's not what they're passionate about, okay, great. Help them think about what might their passion be. And this is one of the times when I feel like being on the internet, having exposure or having a tablet where you can log on to the internet and log on to YouTube and explore different videos together and look at what are people doing and how are they doing things is really interesting. You can take your teen to different types of events. It doesn't have to always be something that you pay for a ticket for, but maybe there's free events. And I know now it's the winter and it's a little bit harder to do that, but this is a really great time for you and your teen to explore different things and being open to different things. Now, as the adults, it's difficult for us to not bring in our own biases. Oh, you won't like that because we don't like it, but try it. Try a new thing. Find a community center if they're having things that are going on, and be open and supportive as you can to your teen and what might interest them. If it's musical taste, listen to those songs together on the computer. If it's some kind of arts or something that you can access on the computer, that's great. Or a skill that maybe you could watch. How do you do that on the computer? That's great. And support your teen in what interests them. And forget, like, we all look at our teens, we all look at the young people or the people in our lives, and we think, oh, this would be great for you, or oh, you should do that. But that's our agenda for them. Help them. You could certainly introduce them to those things, but help them pursue what's interests them, so we don't have that pressure of, well, this is what our family does, this is what we do. We have to be really, really careful of that, of exposing them, but also giving our teen the space and the time to explore their own interests. And remember, this is a really hard thing for sometimes. It's that innate personality type. Are they extroverted or introverted? And I once read about extroverts and introverts, and that is, where do you get your energy? Do you find energy being around other people? Does that sort of fill your energy bucket? Or do you get energy being on your own? So that's that student that comes home and like is sitting in the middle of everything and talking to everybody, and you can see they're just getting like filling with the energy. Or is your teen that teen that goes and just says, hey, I need some time alone, and goes off and is just sort of on their own, and they come back out re-energized? So off on your own, that's that introvert. Being around people, that's that extrovert. It's not, that's not a diagnosis by any means, but you can figure out, or you could take like a personality test and you can kind of figure out what kind of a person are you. Again, not scientific, but a fun way of saying like, hey, I didn't know that's how you like to be. It's just a great way of getting to know your teen a little bit. And then lastly, help your teen learn from their own experiences and let them have their own consequences. And then talk about those consequences with your teen, right? So you you can act as sort of the facilitator in your teen's life. And so you can help them reflect on their interests and their personal choices. And you can have conversations with them about what they do using open-ended questions. And you can help them with like positive observations. You can ask them, would you like my opinion on this? I just asked one of my kids, I have children of my own who went through, was, sort of navigating through something. And I said, do you want my opinion? And they said, no. And I said, not a problem. I'm here if you want it. And they said, no, I know you're going to ask me for it anyway. And I said, no, actually, I don't want to give it to you unless you ask me for it. And then they said, no, give me it then. And I got zero reply from it. It was all in a text message. But when you ask, do you want my opinion? That is a way to build trust. And that's what you want to do. It's a really hard thing. It took, I don't know, I'm a slow learner. It took me a long time to learn that. But it helps them get the information that they want or that they might use. And then what you'll find is they'll start to come to you and ask questions. And then sort of that idea of like, you made a choice, you made a commitment to do something, you should do it. And it's a good time as you're sort of helping your teen figure out who they are, for you to take some time and reflect on, what do I like to do? Who am I? Because when your teen has a strong sense of self, they learn to have, it impacts their resilience, it impacts their own ethics and their own problem solving, and they're better able to communicate, no, that's not what I am. That's not what I'm about, because it's that strong foundation, right? I know that there's a place that I belong, and I can assert myself because I know that I have a place where I am and who accept me no matter what. So it's that helping them figure out who they are and that you are always there with them helps them know unconditionally that they have a place. And then they know their core beliefs. They know when our teens always are feeling like different, it makes you feel like, wow, is there a place I really belong? And that's a hard thing because it can be like a sticky thought, like I don't have a place that I belong. So what we can do is we can help our teens see that they do have genuine interests, they're valid interests, they're important interests, and they can fit in places, but they don't have to give up who they are in terms of their core beliefs in order to, because we want them to feel like they belong, right? So fitting in is fine, but we really want them to get in touch with, who am I in terms of like my core interests? What do I really like to do? And a lot of this centers, like when they're in high school, they think a lot about career interests, or so if you are not familiar with Naviance and the self-identity, self-study in Naviance, you don't have, parents don't have, or guardians don't have access to Naviance, but ask your student to pull up on Naviance. And there's that career interest, self-interest section that is really interesting for them to do. And you can talk to them about, what did you find? And what do you think? Because what we want to do is help the teens find an environment where they feel comfortable. Because like, if they're in an environment where everybody's a baker, they're gonna feel like they have to be a baker because they're gonna feel like they have to fit in. And so what we want to do is help them find out where they feel like what their interests are. And there's so many things to do at Stevenson. It may not be with the people that they've been with previously, but if they feel like it's a place where they belong, I belong with these people, I understand it, then they're more able to feel like they can be their authentic selves. And so it starts at the home, right? It starts at the home. It starts with us the adults in their lives saying, hey, what do you like? What do you do? What interests you? How can I help you figure out what interests you? And sort of having that exploration time, unconditional acceptance around exploring what interests them. And then that works to, then the next place would be, okay, where do I fit in with my friends? Because I have a sense of belonging. So there's a lot of myths around this, right? That sort of stereotype. It's probably not a bad idea to recognize that there are a lot of people who are stereotyped, maybe by their physical traits or by a cultural background or whatever, and to acknowledge and to sort of talk to your teen about those stereotypes and have that conversation. It's also really important to look at your teen's abilities and their assets, and say, hey, what do you do well? Rather than, oh, you should just be doing this because this is what our family does, or this is what everybody does. It's really a good idea for you as the adult in your teen's life to weave stories of diversity and resilience, and introduce them to people in your family that, or in your circle, that don't fit into a stereotype, so that your teen sees a lot of different examples of people feeling really good about themselves and who they are in their circles. And allow your teen to have those experiences to understand, hey, anybody can do anything, and find time to connect with people outside of your circle. Like, there's one of the coolest things about living where we live is that you can experience diversity just by driving to, a little bit outside of wherever you're centrally located, so that your teen can see examples of different interests and creativity, and just sort of to experience different things. And if you don't want to travel because it's COVID times, you can also do that through the internet, through YouTube, just watching different things, just getting into different subject matters. Take an interest survey, and whatever comes up in the interest survey, look for things that look about that, that support those interests, so that your teen sort of knows that this is something that you support them, looking at themselves, looking outside of who they think they need to be, and just being open to those things. In that way, by supporting our teens' discovery of who they authentically are, we actually, as the adults in their lives, are building trust and building those connections that will last after they're living in our homes. Whatever post-secondary experience they're having, we are always thinking, as the adults in our teens' lives, how can I continue to build that relationship with your teen where you are advisor, mentor, guidance, safe place to land, place they can authentically be themselves. And that's the most important thing, that what we're doing with our teens. I want to thank you for being with me today. Tomorrow, we're not going to focus on the teens. We're going to focus on ourselves. How can we, as the adults, build our own resilience where we can be our best strong self so that we can best support our teens? We'll do that tomorrow at noon. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Mara Grujanik, Family Engagement Coordinator at Stevenson High School. As always, if you ever have a question, reach out to me, please. Have a great day. Take care, everyone.